we'll bring Adam Caplan into the conversation, and we'll ask him, Adam, how much of a role do you think that Howie Roseman has had in the mediocrity that this team has become really since 2009 when they traded away Donovan McNabb?
Well, Mike, good to talk to you. Yeah, I think when you look at Howie Roseman's role, it's certainly been significant because he was a general manager, start with in 2010. He was with the team, the last playoff team, last team to win a playoff game. That was 2008. So, yeah, I mean, he's been a big part of it. Now that he right now has the most power, quite frankly, that he's ever had since he's been with the Eagles. The titles mean absolutely nothing. I don't pay attention to titles. I pay attention to responsibilities. He still oversees everything, and he is personnel control, which I've known for months. Joe Douglas is my understanding, who Howie brought in, who was with the Bears for 1 year and then with the Ravens for the rest of his career. Joe's a very highly qualified personnel executive, and he's going to run the personnel departments for Howie, and Howie will be heavily involved with it, and they'll deliver Joe Douglas and his team, Andy Weidel and their group will deliver information to Howie, and they'll discuss it. And Howie will turn the card in, so to speak, for the draft and free agency.
So is this the best position the front office has been in some time? Because it seems like there was a lot of unstable seasons there in terms of who was drafting, who's running the room. I mean, this is even going back to Andy's last couple of years there, where if Andy was running the draft or if Howie was running the draft or who was running the drafts back then and then into the chip era, is this the most concrete that this front office looks moving into an offseason?
Well, Mike, to me, it's always been about relationships when it comes to Howie Roseman, who really is a guy that's been there since around 2000. It's been about relationships in the building and how stable those relationships were and are. And as you kind of alluded to, are they on the same page? And we're going to know because this is Joe Douglas's first draft with the club and free agency. Remember, he came in after the draft of last year. So he kind of was behind, he wasn't involved in their draft or free agency. So this is the first year we're going to know how much he's involved. I mean, Roseman said all the right things. He had said what I'd already known, and now he's confirmed it publicly. Now we're going to see how well Howie listens and how good these relationships are. And that's, to me, it's a relationship business. It's no different than in any other business. You got to listen to people, you got to get along, and you got to be inclusive.
Yeah, and some of the things he said today were he mentioned, in fact, he volunteered Joe Douglas running the draft. That was in his opening statements today that, hey, our biggest offseason acquisition was, in fact, Joe Douglas. I mean, he said it came off the field. He admitted that something off the field was a big move for them. I thought that was kind of a big step for a guy who I think was perceived to be a guy who wanted to prove everybody wrong, that I can do this job and, I can be the drafter and the free agent guy and the contract guy and everybody. I feel today was kind of him stepping back and saying, I got a guy who can help us get to where we need to go.
Well, Mike, I think this time around, Roseman has been through quite a bit in his career. We know in 2015 he was not involved in football operations other than do contracts and manage the salary cap. Now he oversees everything, and he's got a better view. I remember talking to Howie about this when he came back in early 2016. He said he learned a lot from it, and he talked about some of that today. When you're away from it, you can reflect. For the first time in 16 years, Mike, he could actually breathe and take a big look, and he took a look really over a year. And as Howie said publicly before, he really talked to a lot of different people to get better perspective. And now we're going to see.
Yeah.
To me, Mike, this is his last hurrah. He's got to get it right. They were 7-9 this season, which is exactly what I thought it would be. They made the big trade up for Carson Wentz, which looks to this point to be good after one season. But again, they were 7-9, a non-playoff team, and we're going to learn really over the next year or so whether this group will be working together.
Yeah, what you think of? Okay, if we go back, they're 7-9, where you thought they'd be. They were 7-9 a year ago. So did Howie do a good job this offseason? I mean, did the moves he made help this team get to 7-9 this year? You look back, they were 7-9 just 1 year ago. Feels like a lot different team, though.
Yeah, Mike, when I talked to the Eagles really throughout the year, their mantra in the offseason was find a franchise quarterback. Now, here's the caveat. That franchise quarterback would have been either Sam Bradford or Carson Wentz. So I think, Mike, when you really look at it, Carson Wentz, as we know, was not supposed to play this season. That's kind of the way it was supposed to be. And in the end, because of Teddy Bridgewater's injury, the Eagles had leverage in a trade. Roseman smartly used it. Carson Wentz played. They didn't really know quite what they were going to see from him. And Wentz, I think, if you talk to people privately, was a little bit better than they expected. Certainly has a long way to go, but they're on the right track. Mike, it's real simple. When you get the quarterback position right, you just build around it. And I think that's what they're going to do. They talking to the Eagles, they are absolutely sure that Carson Wentz, there's no hesitation, is their franchise quarterback. Now, he's got to play like that. He hasn't played to that level, but they like the signals that they saw this season.
Yeah, Adam Caplan's with us, ESPN NFL insider at Caplan NFL. Has the perception from people you talk to, relationships of Howie changed? I mean, have people noticed that he has learned and that stepping back and that this is a changed guy and a changed organization, even though they got the same guy a part of it?
Well, Mike, here's what I would tell you in answer to that question. Generally, I hear rumblings out of their building whether things are not good. I haven't really heard those things. I just think that I kind of mentioned it, that it's just a matter of Joe Douglas being in here now. What does Joe Douglas want to do? Because now he may bring in more people that he's known throughout his career. Because remember, he brought in Andy Weidel, who was with him with the Ravens. But we'll have to see if they make any other changes. But you wouldn't see a lot of that. Generally, you don't see that until after the draft. You rarely see people leave and come in a personnel department because they don't want people coming in during draft season. They don't want people leaving because you're letting information out the door. So I'm not expecting much movement on the personnel side right now.
All right, Adam, a lot of things in today's press conference that, really stood out. He talked about Wentz, obviously. They think they got their guy. You've echoed that as well. But what about the role of Doug Pederson? And, there was a time there, specifically after that Bengals game, where people were even questioning whether he was going to come back. Does it sound like this organization is firmly behind him? Not that they're going to get rid of him now, but that he is their long-term, that they're going to give him multiple years to kind of, show that he is the guy here?
Well, Mike, I don't think you get the security that head coaches had years ago. I remember talking to Joe Banner, former Eagles president, who's a front office insider with us at ESPN. Joe said, you better see progress in the second year, or now you don't even get a third year. It used to be guys get 3 to 4 years. Now you get 2 to 3. And if you don't see progress that second year, you could lose your job. So I think with Doug, I think it's kind of year to year. I think you have to see. I would say you're right, Mike, that the Bengal game was the first non-competitive game and the only real non-competitive game the Eagles had. That's why you heard in talk radio that people were questioning it. But they closed the season well from a competition standpoint. It wasn't about wins and losses. It was a team playing hard for the head coach? Absolutely. And that's all you really wanted to see. I think, Mike, if you talk to the Eagles privately, they know this team has got a long ways away. It's a long – I would echo Howie Roseman's statements today. He knows what they have. Their whole offseason is helping the quarterback. They're going to do that. They're going to help surround him with more talent. We know we're at receiver and running back's a problem. They've got a long way to go with this roster. I would not get your hopes up high for 17 as far as making the playoffs. But the fact that the team was 7-9, that's something that you could feel like, okay, you saw some good things this season, definitely.
Yeah, so in 7-9 with the coach, if it's, I'm really mystified on this one, Adam. I'm interested in your answer because is this a 7-9 team that Doug made a lot of mistakes and just was in over his head, or do you say, man, this guy really did a good job to get 7 wins out of this team? I don't, it seems like it's a weird dynamic with because a lot of people criticize the job that he did, yet they still won 7 games with a roster that, as you just chronicled, is far away.
Mike, I would put it to you this way. Douglas was a typical rookie head coach. Made some good decisions, really good at challenging, by the way, spots and so forth. One of the better head coach challengers in the league. But also, I think just overall decision-making. Going for it in certain positions when he shouldn't. Play calling at certain times. Dubious or curious. I would also tell you that his press conferences, answers, and responses were somewhat bizarre sometimes. But he was a rookie head coach. I expect this. Hey, Andy Reid's rookie season, you saw plenty of good and plenty bad. But Andy's situation is way different. Andy had to turn around the culture in the building. That's what he did as a rookie head coach in '99. The culture, there has been so many culture changes with the Eagles in recent years, but it's more to figure out what they have, what they don't have, and just kind of bring a new energy in their building after Chip Kelly was fired.
Not a lot of cap space. Adam Caplan's with us, ESPN NFL Insider, at Caplan NFL. Not a lot of cap space. He mentioned Band-Aids, 10-6, not good enough. Is that an indication of, hey, don't expect us to be going crazy in free agency this time around because we don't want the mid-level guys. We don't have the cap space to do it. Is that them kind of saying, don't anticipate a lot of movement?
Well, I think I think they're going to do some stuff for free agency. What they do is the free agency talks are in around the Senior Bowl when they meet with agents. They just try to see what guys they want to bring back, and they get an idea of what they want to do. But yes, I think Howie did one of the things that he did, which I thought was really good, is he made it clear this team is not going to be built for free agency. Howie made the mistakes many years where he would get too heavily involved in free agency. We know in 2011, coming out of the lockout, was obviously one of the worst years the franchise has had in terms of signing free agents. So many major mistakes, obviously with Nnamdi Asomugha was chief among them, and they've changed their philosophy. And obviously with Joe Douglas coming in, the Ravens were the epitome. They really only built the team through the draft, very little in free agency, and that's kind of what I expect. They're going to be involved in free agency, don't get me wrong, but I don't expect to see 6 or 7 players. Could just see 2 to 3 key players. I just think Howie's learned from his lessons, but you just have to see how he works here with Joe Douglas.
Yeah, that's a good point about the Ravens. They draft well. That's what they did to get their Super Bowls. Hindsight 2020, they re-signed a lot of their own. Vinny Curry, Zach Ertz. We know the list of guys that they gave contracts to. Looking back at that, was that the smart move for Howie to establish his core guys, those core guys that they brought back last year with big contracts, a lot of them?
Yeah, I know there was a criticism of Zach Ertz's contract because it seemed to be on paper very big, but here's the way the Eagles looked at it. Let's get him signed early like Joe Banner used to do when Joe was there, and over the years it may look like a bargain. If he, Ertz has put 2 seasons together with back-to-back 70-plus catches, that's really good. And if he could just stay healthy for a season, you're probably looking at 90-plus, as crazy as it sounds. I mean, that's how good this kid is. So. And Lane Johnson extending his contract. He's really good. He was on pace. His first 6 games were probably not only the most dominant of any right tackle the Eagles have seen in years. Really in the league, he was terrific. It's a shame that he got suspended. The one that you mentioned, Vinny Curry. Well, again, no one really knew that he would drop off like he did. He's a multi-positional player. He could play inside a tackle or play DN on the outside, but to the wide 9, playing that wide 9 front, I think the Eagles really thought he'd be great in it, and he wasn't. Now, year 2 in it under Jim Schwartz, assuming he doesn't get a head coaching job, he has to be better. And now they'll have another offseason to get him better. And that's the other thing, by the way. I think the team will be better just because they're back together. Remember, they changed everything. Their offensive, defensive schemes last year went from a 3-4 to 4-3, which is dramatic. And they went from Chip's offense to certainly some spread concepts, but the philosophy was different. So I think you have to give everyone another offseason to get it right. And I think they're going to be better than 7-9. Now we'll see the players that they add, but I just think that the reality is that the roster was clearly subpar, and they knew it, and they're going to fix this thing.
Yeah, we're talking with Adam Caplan. You brought up Lane Johnson. They were 5-1 when he played and 2-8 when he did not. Is it crazy to suggest that they are a solid right tackle away from being a playoff team?
No, Mike. The problem is the running game, and you have to. Here's just a couple things here. I know Wentz played out of his mind the first quarter of the season, and they were playing way better than people expected. The reality is, when a roster is not very good, eventually reality hits. That's just the thought of personnel people. And the coaching was exceptional early on. They were really Doug Pederson calling plays, the coaching on offense, and the defense was playing out of its mind. And the corners, I could not believe how well they were playing, Mike. We knew the corners weren't going to hold up. We knew the receivers weren't going to hold up. And Ryan Matthews and his injury history, we knew that was going to be a factor, and it was. So the reality, everything I predicted went up happening, although I was scratching my head first quarter of the season. when it looked like they were going to be way better than I thought, but nothing's really changed. No, I mean, even if Lane Johnson plays 16 games, they're better. But Jason Kelce had an up and down season. Their defense, which carried the football team, collapsed in the second half. The corners were terrible. I mean, the Eagles have the worst group of corners and receivers in the NFL. I mean, you can't win like that. And they know that, and they're going to clean this up.
Yeah, and Howie opened up the press conference today by basically saying what he targeted last offseason. They got Brandon Brooks, they got Wiz, they drafted Sayamala, they got Big V. That was something that they fixed. They targeted a weak spot, they went after it. If they go through the same model this year, which of those blueprints should they go after, wide receiver or corner? If they're only going to fix one and say, all right, that's the next step in the process, which is easier?
Well, it's easier at receiver. It's the fact that it's 10 times easier to do that. They're going to need two outside corners. Jordan Matthews is a third receiver. That's what he is. That's what personnel people see him as. On a good football team, on a bad football team, is your top passing target. And also you're going to play him more on the outside because you have nobody else. So what they're going to do, they're going to dress both outside spots. They're going to dress both outside corner spots. They'll be good in the slot. We'll see if they resign Nolan Carroll. That's up to Howie Roseman. We'll see how that goes. But they know what their needs are. They need at least a defensive end, if not two. I don't know that Connor Barwin will be back next season. You mentioned the cap issues. There'll be an okay cap space, but I think two or three starters may not return. So they'll be fine with the cap. The cap's going up. I never worry about the cap. People really dramatize. I've already looked at it. I just think that the Eagles have a lot of work here. And Howie's right. You're not getting this thing done in one offseason.
Yeah.
But you mentioned it. Tell you it's going to figure late.
Hey, real quick, is Logan, he's the highest profile, he a priority for them?
They'd like to bring him back, but it's going to be tough because they're paying Fletcher Cox. They're paying Vinnie Curry. It's paying Connor Barwin, and we'll see if Barwin returns. We'll see. I would also tell you that it's hard to pay the nose tackle, although he's more than a nose tackle. He's a very athletic player. But it's tough. They'd like to have him back, but we're just going to see how that one goes. Generally, I would tell you when I know I think something's going to happen. It may happen for 3 months from now. This one, I can't say for absolute certainty that he's going to be back.
Okay, wide out corner. Do they feel that they have their running back, or do they want to look at running back? And if, say, the kid Cook falls to them at 14, 15, would running back be a spot that they would say, yes, we still need to fix?
Well, they're going to address running back. They're going to add a running back. They like Wendell Smallwood. He's more of a rotational back, and Sproles will be, this will be Sproles' last year as an NFL player. He's a changeup. They're going to have a back with size. You can count on that. And we have to see who declares for the draft. Cook's a fine football player, but the Eagles' needs are. You don't draft a running back that high when you're a team that has so many needs. It's really the one position that I don't see the Eagles, and based on I know what their philosophy has been, I'd be flabbergasted if they draft a running back in the first round. They were never going to draft Ezekiel Elliott despite the rumors. It was never even a consideration, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, last one for Adam Caplan here. Reich, DiFilippo, both names being mentioned. If that's the kind of situation, like when Andy started losing some of his guys, you start to see some cracks. Are these guys that are important enough that they have to stick around here, or if they left, for Pederson, to have guys like Reich and DiFilippo around him, would they be big losses if one or both of those guys left?
Yeah, I mean, as I reported yesterday, the Jets have a lot of strong interest in DiFilippo. That's John DiFilippo, the Eagles quarterbacks coach, who went to Radnor High. And Frank Reich, the Bills have not asked for permission to talk to Frank. I don't know if that's even going to happen, despite the rumors. You never want to lose your quarterbacks coach because he's the one who's closest to the quarterback. And Frank, obviously, Frank, as the offense coordinator, has a big hand in managing Carson Wentz. So that would not be good if one or both guys left. We'll see what happens there. And you saw with Andy Reid. You mentioned Andy Reid. Remember all the coaches he lost. Sean McDermott, Ron Rivera, Leslie Frazier, Brad Childress. The list goes on and on and on. And it's hard to overcome that when you lose a lot of coaches. And that to me is a problem. And the Eagles did a smart thing. They blocked Jeff Stoutland, Dave Phipp, Deuce Staley from joining Chip Kelly last year. Thank goodness for them that they did that. That was a very smart move.
And as you tweeted about an hour ago, Rasheed Bailey signed a future deal with the Eagles. That was a guy they liked at the beginning of the year. He might have got on the field this year.
I'm telling you, it was the strangest thing. If you remember, Rasheed Bailey led the Eagles in receptions in the preseason 2 years ago. Now, in fact, I would argue that he was their best receiver in their offseason of 15. Chip Kelly wanted nothing to do with him for whatever reason. And you could argue that maybe that was the right choice because Rasheed couldn't catch on anywhere. But it wasn't from lack of effort. And really what happened was he just kept working out. He unfortunately injured his ankle late in the preseason with the Chargers. It took him 5 weeks, 6 weeks to get it healed. He's fine. He's going to get a chance to make it, so we'll see what happens.
All right, good stuff. Adam Caplan at Caplan NFL, ESPN NFL Insiders. Check him out on the Boob Tube there. And, of course, we appreciate your time. Happy New Year to you, pal.
Same to you. Thank you.